tonight we're talking about power and capacity. So I'm just going to do a quick reminder about the framework that we're using. So you remember at the very beginning, some of you were at that first session, so you probably won't remember that. We did this yes, no, yes framework, right? We tried to work on this. So we read the article by Ched Myers, right? And when he gives it the framework, right? So his original yes is the watershed, the bioregion, right? The incredible, intricate, alive system that it is. And then the no, he talked about peak everything, okay? And the systems that have created that peak everything, okay? And then in his framework, he was real clear about what that second yes could look like, right? Theological regrounding, replace economics, political imagination, social justice, ecological renewal. And he really sees churches as the locus for this movement, right? It's not coming from the seminaries, right? It's coming from the churches, from the ground up. And then we have, we were talking about like a bunch of other stories, right? Biblical and historical. We're going to talk about a couple of historical stories tonight. But the biblical one, just broad brushstrokes, right? Original creation story, right? Blah, 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 lots happens, okay, and then we have slavery, empire, Egypt, right? So these guys are enslaved for 420 or 30 years, exactly, right? Then, Ched Myers talks about when they get out of there, right? It's not about promised land. It's about Sabbath economics. It's about a whole different system. It's about not recreating empire economics that they've just been experiencing for so many generations, right? So yes, no, yes. So tonight is about this, right? It's about how do we get from the no to the yes, right? So did Moses and Aaron just like, hello, Pharaoh, could you let us go? Sure, I don't mind giving away all my tens and thousands of free, labor, right? No. Negotiation, organization. How do you get tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people to leave a place simultaneously, right? Extremely organized. And it's because this was extremely organized too. Right? So, there we go. And so this brings the question too, back to that Ched article, right? Peak everything. If churches are the locus for this, what are we doing? How do we build the power and capacity? I'm not use black, I'm going to use like orange. Orange. Power and capacity. Okay. That's what we're up to, right? How do we do that? Who does that? What does that look like? What are the elements of it? So we're going to have a couple stories. Terry and Sophie are going to share some stories tonight. And then we're going to explore that one.
So we just have two stories that are more modern and in some of our lifetimes. The story I want to tell is about civil rights. And then Toby's going to tell a story from his homeland of Germany. And it's in this format of yes, no, and what does it take to get to the second yes. So this should be familiar to most people in the room, either by experience. How many people have had direct experience with the civil rights movement? Any direct experience with it? Good, Christine and others, great. So this is an outline. So on the first yes, the dignity and equality of all people, you can say it in a number of different ways, but basically the human dignity. The no, which was organized, it's about discrimination, segregation, economic inequity, denial of democratic participation. For example, black people couldn't vote, or it was made very difficult in the South. Denial of legal and the North. And the North, yes. A denial of legal and human rights by law, by legislation, and they were unjust laws, according to some. So the no was definitely organized, right? So the yes to the no wasn't just a bunch of people who decided that it was wrong and wanted to just go helter-skelter, but there were all kinds of organizations going back way before Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks. So the NAACP, National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, established in the 20s by W.E.B. Du Bois, the Urban League. In fact, Rosa Parks was the secretary of the local NAACP before she got involved in the civil rights movement. What's this stand for? Southern Christian Leadership Conference, primarily Martin Luther King and the pastors. SNCC, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, Black Panthers, Black Muslims, and Black churches, kind of the backbone. Synagogues. What did synagogues have to do with the civil rights movement?
Much sympathy. We were slaves in Egypt.
Much sympathy. We were slaves in Egypt. Participation as freedom riders, so students, young students, and funding from New York Jews for the civil rights movement. White churches, a few. The Montgomery Improvement Association, local association founded in the 50s, but was predominantly the vehicle by which the Montgomery bus boycott became national news. The Martin de Porres Society. Anybody know about that one? I bring that up because tomorrow we're memorializing an African American patriarch in this congregation who joined the Martin de Porres Society, which is a Catholic auxiliary organization to, guess what, desegregate lunch counters in Portland, Oregon. Highlander School in Kentucky, training school for nonviolent organizing. American Friends Service Committee, you may be familiar with. So a lot of organizations. As the no is organized, so the yes is organized, not just individually, but institutionally to what? To build power and capacity for the new yes. There may be others, yes. Yeah, sure.
Seats up there, up to the right. Yep.
Okay.
Again, as a reminder, my name is Toby. I introduced myself last week, but names are sometimes difficult to remember. And as most people can probably tell, I am not American. My language is a little odd, a little weird. Today I can tell you why, because I'm from Germany. And I have the honor to give you an example of a yes, no, yes, which relates very closely to what we're talking about, climate crisis, and obviously the source of that energy. And I want to quickly lead you through how capacity was built for Germany to face something which could be called a revolution. So the title of that is Germany's Greens Energy Revolution. The reason why I put the S in the green will become clear shortly. I don't have the original yes on there because I think that's pretty obvious. The original yes is nature, clean land, clean rivers, clean water, clean air. Nature as it's meant to be. The big no at the time in Germany was pollution. We're talking 60s, 70s, and nuclear power and nuclear arms. It's very organized, and that pollution, obviously, energy industry was becoming more and more prominent. We needed to have more energy. How do we get them? Through fossil fuels and through nuclear power. This is the time of the Cold War. So the whole world was arming itself with nuclear weapons, which posed a gigantic threat. This was not really given a voice for a long time. When all of a sudden, though, someone decided we need to give this big no a voice. We need to state what the problem is. So out of this came what is in German, you guys are getting a little linguistic course here as well, Die Grünen, which is obviously the German word for the Green Party, a political institution that's become a gigantic player in the German political landscape. What have they achieved, despite still being a minority? Well, they have achieved the new yes, which is an energy transition. And because I was a little hectic, I actually spelled energy in German. Just saying that. So what does that new yes look like? Well, by 2022, Germany will no longer have any nuclear power. All nuclear plants are going to be closed down. 10 of the 19 are already shut. The next 9 are going to be phased out within the next 8 years. Secondly, renewable energy. Germany currently uses 25% of its energy comes from renewable resources. To give you an idea, comparison-wise, the US is at about 11%. I think the world leader is Denmark at around 30%. The new goal is by 2025, 45% green energy. 10 years later, 55 to 60, and then by 2050, 80%. Munich, the third largest city in Germany, 1.4 million people living there, by 2025 wants to be 100% clean. The interesting piece of this is, this new energy, or Energie, as we pronounce it in German, transition, has actually been okayed by the current German Chancellor, who's conservative. So this is no longer a discussion of I'm right, I'm left. No, this is a discussion about energy. What is best? How can we all live in a sustainable way? And that's where the power and the capacity comes from. And this is why we owe so much to the Green Party. That is, again, still a minority. It's only the 4th largest party. But they gave a voice to this. They gave it a political platform. So when we were talking about this, Terry asked the question, well, how is the organizational power capacity built and exercised? That's what we want to know. Local action in civic groups, student movements, but all at the local level. They started saying, we have a problem here. We want to fight against this. Then all of a sudden, out of the local groups come some regional groups. And they start actually getting some traction by getting into regional parliaments. All of a sudden, they have a voice. And then 1979, they go national. Out of all these little institutions, they all come together, coalesce, and form the Greens Party in 1979. 4 years later, this is huge. 4 years later, they were voted into the German parliament.
Wow.
Another key question was, what opposition did the new capacity actually, what did they face? Because obviously, the energy sector, the industry, is thinking, who are these guys? We're going to lose a ton of money. Nuclear power, same thing. All those big players, all of a sudden, well, they're obviously branding the Greens as radicals, they're anarchists, they're just a bunch of you name what. But all of a sudden, those denunciations don't hold true anymore because the beauty of the German democratic system is we have proportional representation. All of a sudden, millions of people were actually voting yes for something. So even though the Greens might just have 9 or 10% proportionally, they're still a member of the German parliament, and they have a big say. And they were actually a government partner for 8 years, from the end of the 1990s to 2005. And it's just very overwhelming, and I feel the significance in this is how something that's still a minority, that's not everyone's political idea, has moved away to no longer being a political idea, but something that touches basically everyone's heart and everyone's mind, in the sense of this is an issue, this note, we can no longer ignore, regardless of if we might be more conservative or if we might be more social. Political lines don't even matter that much anymore. And I think that is a huge lesson that is taught.
Thanks, Tony.
Haven't there been tremendous economic benefits as well?
Yes.
Now, given away universities.
Obviously, investing in all of this is creating a lot of jobs, is creating new industries, and it's very beneficial, and that's why Germany is doing very well. There have been voices lately that are saying, well, Germany's going to face a recession as well because the EU isn't doing very well, the European Union, but Germany's doing very well, and we engineer, that's what we do per se, so you can rest assured that this is planned. This is not just lip service.
Toby, there was a quick question here.
Yes.
What are your top 2 or 3 renewable energy sources?
Solar and wind.
Alright, so, we're gonna give you a few minutes to do a little bit of journaling. So in your folders, unless you have something else to write on, there should have been a few blank pieces of paper in your folder somewhere. So just take those out and, just a couple of questions. The first one is, in this larger yes, no, yes, framework we've been working with, we've been exploring the no, right? Particularly the extensive system of capitalism as it will evolve to become grossly unsustainable and destructive. And so how are we moving from that no, the system as it is, to what it could be, what it should be, right? So the question is, we have 2 questions. One, what are the current organizations, right? So Toby and Terry just listed many organizations, right? That you know of, that are here, right where we live, that are currently exercising power and capacity to move us in that direction of a second yes, of a more sustainable economy. Right? So what are the organizations that you know of that are right here that are already doing this, already moving us in that direction? Okay? Second question, how has your congregation organized itself to exercise power and capacity? It doesn't have to be in this particular moving towards a sustainable economy, but how, in any way, how has your congregation organized itself to exercise power and capacity? To change things. To make something better. Right? Or has it? Or how could it? Right? So the first one is just the organizations that you know of, that you're familiar with. The second one is just looking at the one that you're part of. And looking back at how have we done that? A few minutes, and then when you hear the sound of the bell, we'll break into table count.